In this video, we're going to talk about how to use type, layer styles, and vector shapes in order to create a menu for a restaurant. So I've got Photoshop open here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the Create New button. Alternatively, you can say File and then New, but basically you just want to get to this New Document dialog box. What I want to do is I want to now click on the Print tab up at the top and make sure that I have the letter preset selected. Letter is a short way of it's another way of saying 8.5 by 11 inch sized paper. Of course, anything for print is going to have a resolution of 300 pixels per inch, aka PPI. So I'm going to select the letter document, make sure all of my settings over here are correct, which they are, and then I'm going to hit the word create. That will give me a letter size document that's ready to go. I've got my character panel pulled up here already because I know that I'm going to need that for this one because I'm going to be dealing a lot with type. Aside from that, I've got all my other normal panels. So for this assignment, you can make a menu for a restaurant that exists, or you can make up a restaurant from scratch if you'd like. If you do the latter, you might have to also create a logo, or at least a simple or basic logo for that restaurant. We'll talk more about logo design later on. But here we go. So I've got a letter-sized blank document here. I also went ahead and downloaded the logo for my little brother's restaurant. They're going to be my example for this one. I downloaded their logo from the internet in a PNG format. PNG meaning it has a transparent background. Now, of course, I can't see it right now, even though I know it's added. That is because the logo is white and my background is white. If I invert my background, you can see that I've got the logo right there. But I actually do want a white background. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my Goldie's logo layer. And I'm going to go down to my effects, my layer styles, and I'm going to add a color overlay. When you add a color overlay, it will just kind of automatically do that. I've actually already got this yellow selected. I believe it normally defaults to some variation of gray, 50% gray, but I do want that yellow. I actually pulled that yellow from their existing logo using the eyedropper tool earlier. So I'm going to click OK. This layer is a smart object. We haven't talked about smart objects yet, but I can tell it is because it has this little icon underneath the thumbnail. That means that no matter what I size it to, this logo will always look good. It will always look the same. It will never lose quality. The logo kind of snaps right there to the middle of my document. I kind of like the flat look. If you want to add a little bit to it, you could also add another layer style, maybe like a stroke. You could add a little stroke to the outside. Just to kind of make it stand out a little bit more. I believe strokes default to the inside. To me, strokes look better when they're set to the outside, but oftentimes it depends on the actual document that you're dealing with. If you didn't like the stroke, you could turn the eyeball on or off, depending on what you want. I'm going to leave it off for this one. Okay, so now we need to start adding the actual menu items into this. You're going to want to have about 3 sections for your menu. And once again, you can come up with these things or you can use an existing menu. I am using their existing menu, which is right here. You can see it. I do like the colors, and they do have little boxes, but it's a little bit difficult to find out what is what. But we do have a section here for meats, another section for sandwiches, and then a section for desserts. And then there's this kind of section for sides in the middle. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Photoshop, and I'm going to go down here to this. This is my rectangle tool. These are all of my shape tools. My shape tools are what we call vector tools. Vectors are different than regular digital images or what we call raster images because vectors are made out of paths and anchor points, and they can be resized without losing quality. So I've got my rectangle tool selected, and I'm going to click and drag to create a rectangle. Another way to do that is if you just, when you have the vector tool selected, if you click in the middle, it pulls up this dialog box where you can put in the specifications for your rectangle. But I'm just going to click and drag to make mine. And because I had that yellow pulled up already, it fills it in with that color yellow. And I actually don't want that. I'm going to set my fill to be nothing. And instead, I'm going to add a stroke. I'm going to add a black stroke to the outside of this box. And you can't really see anything right now. It's because my stroke is set, the size is set to 0 pixels. But if I move this up and up and up, you can see that I start to see the stroke a little bit more and more. Let's go to 10. I'm going to set the stroke to 10, and then we've got our little box there. So there's other different ways you can modify that too. If we didn't want it to be solid, you could do a little lined box. You could do dots. It really kind of depends on what you would like to do. I actually do kind of like the look of the lines, so I'm going to leave that there. And the next thing I want to do is I'm going to center it. There's different ways that you can center objects. Right now I'm just using the move tool to drag it around until I get the little smart guide, the magenta colored smart guide that shows me that it's lined up exactly in the middle there. So I am now going to go to my type tool. I'm going to add some type to this document. I'm going to not click inside of it because then it wants to, you can see that my cursor changed to the typing on a path tool. I'm going to click out here and I'm going to click and drag to make a little box. Actually, no, I'm not going to do that yet. I'm just going to click and we're going to add point type. And we're just going to type out the word meets. So I tried this already and I decided that I liked this font. But I would say never go with the default font. Normally Photoshop defaults to Myriad Pro. You can see that I tried a variety of different fonts over here. Scroll through, and if you have your text highlighted, it will kind of just preview that for you. I actually might like this better. This Brothers. Yeah, I'm actually going to switch to this. We're going to switch on the fly, but I'm going to capitalize it. So we're going to go with the word meets. I'm going to move it. I'm not sure if I like it better. I think I'm going to keep it above it. And I'm going to adjust some of the spacing of this word. The space between M and the E is a little bit too much, so I'm going to adjust the kerning. Remember, you can do that by holding the Alt or Option key when you have your cursor placed between the two letters and using your arrows to space them out. Alternatively, you can go to your character menu, find which one is which. This one's the kerning, and you can adjust the spacing there until you get where you're liking. But I normally find that clicking and doing it manually gives you a better result. Then I can space out these other letters accordingly. But kerning is going to be something you're going to do more and more as you deal with type. So that's the font Brother. And I want a different font for the inside. So the inside, I'm going to click and drag to make a little text box. And this is where I'm going to actually list the different meats that they have. So I know that they have brisket. I'm going to size this down. Let's try 16. 16 is pretty good. I know that they have ribs. I know that they have sausage. I know that they have turkey. And I'm going to leave it just like that. So now I can take this and I can move it inside of this little box, which is where I want it to be. And now I can modify this text box however I would like. The size, I obviously can go a little bit larger. Let's try 24. 24 is pretty darn good. If I wanted to adjust different elements of the spacing of it, I can highlight it, come over here. This one is my kerning. I don't want my kerning. This one should be my tracking. And I can click and drag to adjust the tracking. That's obviously terrible. But you can slide things around until you get it where you like it. I'm going to end up changing the font first. One thing that I suggest doing is Googling. If you're not sure what looks good with your font, search like fonts that pair well with, what was that one called? Brother? Brothers, plural. And depending on the font that you're using, it will normally give you some options there. So let's see. There's similar fonts. Brothers font pairings, which is what I want. Okay. So you can kind of see other suggestions that they've got. If you're not seeing one for yours, you can just highlight them all, and just like we did earlier, you can click inside of your list of fonts and scroll through until you find something that you liked. Avenir was one of the ones that they suggested. I'm looking at that combination right now. There's lots of options within Avenir to find something that you like. Medium might be good. Black is a little too thick. You want fonts that don't look too similar to one another, but look like they do go well together. I'm actually going to go with with Roman. There we go. So that's what that looks like so far. I can adjust the positioning of that if I would like to. So let's see. Now I'm going to add the prices. You can look that up or you can make that up depending on your restaurant. So brisket is $12. Everything else is $9. Obviously, I did leave off pulled pork, but that's okay. Brisket. I'm just going to go ... $12. Ribs, ... Let's see, $9. Sausage, $9. And turkey, $9. See if we can get everything spaced out a little bit more evenly. There are other options that you guys have in the paragraph panel if you would like, where you can check and adjust how things line up with one another. Otherwise, you can also, I'm going to use my ruler and drag out a guideline. So just right there, and just zoom in a little bit so I can kind of see where things line up. So if I want to, I could adjust different aspects of these so that things do line up a little better. On sausage, we'll space that out a little more. On brisket, we'll do the opposite. And now everything seems to be lining up pretty good. I can move that guide back. And then we'll just add the same note that they had in theirs. So I'm going to make another little text box down here at the bottom. That's my justified text. I'm going to change it back. And we'll add some punctuation. We'll put that down here in the bottom. Okay, so we've got our first section done. Now, if I'm smart, I would probably want to keep this organized in some way, and I'm going to do that. So I'm actually going to select all of my layers that are in that little box, and I'm going to continue to hold down the Shift key, and I'm going to click on the group icon, which looks like a little folder down there at the bottom, which adds all of those layers into a group. I'm then going to double click on the words group 1 and rename this to meats. So I know what is what. We'll also rename this logo. Now, if I'm really smart, I could do this. I'm going to duplicate that layer, and I'm going to select the duplicated layer and drag it down, which gives me really all of everything that I just did already set up for me, so that I can modify it. So now I've just got another section for sides that's already has all of my settings set up for it. Let's go back to their menu. So let's see, they've got potato salad, pinto beans, coleslaw, collard greens, and we can start to add things. So this one already now has my fonts that I would like. It has the right size that I would like. They do have a good restaurant if anybody's looking for a barbecue place to go. It's not necessarily close to any NCTC location, but it might be even worth a drive. And let's just add grits to keep this pretty even. Actually, let's add both, and I'll show you how to modify that. So if I wanted to add another one to this list, what I would do is I have to resize my rectangle. So I'm going to select the layer that has my rectangle, which is this one, and I'm going to go to my Move tool and just hit Control-T, and I can stretch it down. Ah, yes. When dealing with vector shapes, they work a little bit differently than other shapes. What I want to do is I want to transform this layer without keeping it proportional. You notice that when I move this down, it automatically adjusted the other sides too to keep it proportional. I'm going to hold down Shift now, and it allows me to do it the other way. So now I can come over here. I'm going to resize my box for my text. Copy that. Paste it, and this is collard greens. All right, so this one, obviously, I'm going to have to add a lot more dots if I wanted to keep that at least somewhat similar to the other option, which you can or you can't. Maybe adding 5 dots to everything would have been a better way to go for this one, but hey, you live and you learn. I'm going to drag out another guide. Yes, and we've also got... Actually, on this one, yeah, it's going to be a little bit different. Small, medium, and large. We don't need the dots on this one. That's not how they price their sides. So I'm just going to get rid of the dots on the price completely. I was about to use my guideline and adjust the kerning or tracking in between those dots to help get everything to fit. So we'll just come back over here now, and now we'll say small, medium, large. Add that to the bottom, make sure it lines up with the rest of the text. Actually, that might be something that I want to do with this top one as well. Let's see if we can, yeah, now that lines up. Maybe even want to get it to line up to the one at the bottom. Okay, so let's go with their pricing, which was $357 and $11. If you didn't like their pricing, you could just make it up on your own. Let's see, we'll just add 3 dots for each one. 350, 7, 11. If I was being real extra on this, I could maybe, well, let's actually just put MED. There we go. I would probably try to get those lining up correctly, but for today's purposes, I'm fine with them not. So there we go. So then we've got our section of meats, our section of sides. Let's add one more. I'm going to collapse this group. I'm going to collapse this group. I'm going to rename this group to sides. And now I'm going to duplicate this group. I'm going to duplicate the group by clicking it and dragging it down to the Create New Layer button, which duplicates it there. And now if I go to my Move tool and I have this whole group selected, when I click and drag, it drags off an entire copy. Oh, this is going to work out perfect. And here, we are just going to, make sure we're in all caps to match. We're going to add a section for desserts. The spacing looks like it's not completely perfect in between all these, but we'll take care of that here in a little bit. Okay, so desserts. Let's see, what did they have? They have banana pudding, bread pudding, $3.75 each. So let's go back here. Oh, all caps still. Banana pudding, bread pudding. Maybe we want to add one more. Let's add some key lime pie. They don't have that. I wish they did. Maybe one day. And desserts. Desserts will just say, let's see. What did they say? $3.75 each. Okay, we can keep that. And we can modify this text so that it lines up with everything else, which it looks like right there should be it. Using my smart guides to tell me. If you don't see smart guides on your version of Photoshop, go to the View menu, go down to Show, and make sure that smart guides are checked. That's how you get them to show up. They are very useful. Now, of course, we have all this extra space, which we don't need. So what I'm going to do is go to make sure I have that rectangle selected, hit Control-T. Remember that you do have to hold Shift if you want to keep everything, if you're changing the proportionality of the sides, and we can adjust that there. There we go. We've got our plain basic menu. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 different menu items. We've got prices for everything there too. If you want to be a little bit extra, you could, of course, add some other stuff to it. Maybe on this one, we want to add a background. Let's add just a little solid color. Maybe kind of an orangish. Maybe not. If you want to modify things, you can adjust it from there. Maybe we go with a little blue. So far, I'm really not liking any possible color, but that looks okay. The Goldies doesn't stand out quite as much as it did. Now I feel like we maybe would have to add that stroke in order to get it to stand out. Maybe we change the stroke size to 4, though. Okay. Maybe we also add in the stuff at the bottom. Different, let's see. And a phone number. We'll just put, I'm making stuff up. and maybe an address or social media or something like that too. So there you have it. And just with that size, it happens to line up perfectly. Of course, there were some menu items that they had that I left off, and that's okay. For this, I did complete the necessary elements of the assignment for this purpose. We've got our logo, we've got our text, we've used some layer styles to make everything stand out. If we wanted to be a little bit extra about it, maybe, and we've also have vector shapes. Uh, Maybe we want to use layer styles a bit more, maybe on the word meets. Maybe we add in a stroke that's set to size 2. And then check this out. I'm going to, instead of the regular opacity, just makes everything kind of float away completely. But if I go down to my fill opacity and move that down, it just leaves the stroke. It just leaves my layer styles. So like now, maybe let's try this to something a little bit larger. There we go. I'm actually going to change the tracking on this now too. Let's see, let's go back to my character panel, find the tracking. The tracking appears to be currently set to 0. Let's set it to 10. Ooh, let's go even higher. Let's set it to 50. And that looks pretty okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that layer style by right-clicking the layer, scrolling down to copy layer style, and then I'm going to paste that onto the little headers of all of my little layers there. So we'll do that to the sides. We'll also get that set to the same tracking. So we'll change this to 50. Get in there and adjust the kerning. And we'll do that to this other one as well. Desserts. Right click, paste layer style. And then we're also going to select it and adjust the tracking and then manually click in and see if there's anywhere where we need to adjust the kerning. There we go. So yeah, this is our designed menu for a restaurant in which we used type. We also used layer styles, and we use vector tools in order to do this. The one last thing I said I was going to do earlier, but I didn't, was I was going to select our little slides group and just make sure that it's kind of, that the spacing in between everything is a little bit more even. There is a tool called the ruler tool in Photoshop that can give you a little bit more options there as far as finding out where things are. My goodness, I rarely use the ruler tool. I feel like I might have lost the positioning of the ruler tool. There's rotate view. Where'd you go, ruler tool? If you ever lose a tool, this is the process for finding it. Click and hold. There we go. I should have known that. Ruler tool. So you can measure the distance between things. So on this one, I could now measure the distance from the bottom of this to the top of that. Hold shift if you want it to be perfectly straight. And it will tell you up here. So that's a height of 117 pixels to this one. Let's try this again, which is 118 pixels. So that's, I would say, probably close enough for me. If you want to be extra, you could maybe move it 1 pixel down with your move tool. And there we go. Of course, when you're done, you're going to save this as a, I would actually say maybe save this one as a PDF. I'm not going to turn my nose up at a JPEG, but a PDF would be normal. Actually, yeah, let's just say this. Save this as a PDF. PDF, you can also keep your layers panel. So to save as a PDF, file, save as. We're going to save it on our computer. We're going to save it to the desktop. Our format is going to be Photoshop PDF. And yeah, we'll keep our layers. That way we can edit it if we would like. Of course, if you're not done editing it, you would save it as a PSD or a Photoshop document file. We're going to preserve Photoshop editing capabilities and just click Save PDF. Portable document format, I believe is what that stands for. And then we are done. That's it for this week, everybody. Excited to see your menus.